Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome into the NBA front office show. Somehow it's June. I don't know. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about today. We've got the NBA finals. We've got the draft. We've got free agency. We've got trade stuff, all kinds of things to get into today. But Keith, I find myself, in spite of all of that, bewildered at the fact that it is now June. I feel like May just didn't happen. And suddenly here we are and it's June.
Trevor, there's times when I feel like the entire year just didn't happen. I know, like everyone says this, but like since the pandemic, like all concept of time has just been kind of broken for me in that sense. And to your point though, somehow it's June, and somehow we're still 3 days from the NBA Finals starting. Like, good Lord, like just let's go already. Like, there's not a storyline left to be talked about. I don't think we've gotten into yet. I jokingly said, I think we're down to like, what happens if it's Luke Cornett versus Dwight Powell in the third string center matchup? Like, I feel like we're there now and have been there for days. So I'm just ready. But yeah, man, it's June, which means free agency and the draft start. Draft later this month, free agency right on the heels of that. So this is a great time. If you're new to the show, hit subscribe because we're going to be here every day for you, breaking it all down and everything like that. People have asked. We're working out our plans for the draft. We'll let you know when we get there what we're going to do for the 2 nights of the draft. And yes, we will go live on the free agency nights. Be later in the evening. We will do that. We will go live, break down kind of everything that happened throughout the course of that day. And obviously, if there are any 2 a.m. blockbusters and Trevor can wake me up because he'll still be awake, we'll sign in here with sleepy, tired eyes and break those down too if we need to.
Fire the Kevin Cannon.
There it is. Yeah, right.
I missed that thing.
Kevin Cannon. I do too. Oh, and by the way, just for anybody wondering, yeah, front office show is going to continue. We're not in a blood feud with each other and ready to murder each other or anything like that.
We'll see if we make it through the finals.
Right? We had such a good time reading and laughing at the comments that were made on our last show. It was so funny during the show, after the fact, like everybody thinking like the two of us are ready to kill each other and that's the end of the show. And somebody even said something along the lines of, I just found this show and it's already going to end already because they hate each other. Like,
we're still here.
We're still here. We're still going. We're still doing our thing.
Speaking of which, you guys can also check out the Basketball Bulletin. We have a new mock draft up today.
Yeah.
I'll put the link to that in the description down below, basketballbulletin.substack.com, which is also still there, as well as the Basketball Bulletin YouTube channel, which is off to a phenomenal start. So guys, check that out as well. I'll put the link there. I have a new video coming out later today. It might have something to do with Keith's Boston Celtics. And crazily enough, I actually kind of wind up on the Celtics side as the video goes on, which I did not expect to be. But Keith, I did a deep dive on the Celtics Kyrie Irving situation and kind of how that whole situation played out. And anyway, I'll let everybody come to their own conclusion on that. But we've got plenty of news to get into here. Let
me say one thing. Basketball Bulletin mock draft that's up today was with trades.
That's
were
right.
A handful of trades that were made between the people who took part in the mock draft, and it was a fun one. There was a lot of stuff, and it led to a different version of the mock draft than I think what we have seen in other past versions, whether it be the ones where Bryce invited several contributors or even just different mock drafts that are out there. So definitely check that out because there was some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm adding it right here real quick just so everybody can see what it looks like and everything. Again, the Basketball Bulletin, we've got all kinds of stuff that's going up there that you guys can check out. You can see we've got a mock draft 4.0. Bryce is doing a phenomenal job there. We got some videos that are living there, lots of things. So again, go check out the Basketball Bulletin. But of course, you can also subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show. We kind of hit different targets, right, with the Basketball Bulletin and with the Front Office Show, which is why they're part of why they're separated. You mentioned the finals and the crazy wait for the finals to actually get started, but the benefit of that is that Kristaps Porzingis will be good to go. At least it seems like I don't know if it's like official.
Yeah,
at this
they
point,
haven't said yet.
Yeah, but everything looks to be. I mean, he's practicing and all that kind of stuff, so he'll be playing, which obviously is a big deal for Boston to have Kristaps Porzingis available. Would also have to imagine Derek Lively will be at 100% or as close to it as you're going to get this time of year. for the Dallas Mavericks. So that's what you want to see. You want to see everybody at full strength or as close to full strength as you can be, and putting on a show for the finals.
Yeah, it also gave Maxi Kleba a couple more, like a week longer to get himself in better shape. I thought there were moments where he looked a little tentative, not unsurprising after coming back so quickly from the separated shoulder, but he'll be back in there. Both teams, knock on wood, I'll do it lightly so the dogs don't go bananas, but very much coming in full strength, it looks like, to start this one, which is great. That's where we want teams to be. And unfortunately, it's pretty rare at this time of year. So we'll get, we're still 2 days out from even getting first official injury reports. I'm expecting we're going to see Porzingis is questionable. Luka probably is questionable. And all the guys that have been questionable will probably still be listed as such. And I think that's just a little bit of gamesmanship. But Porzingis himself said he's ready to go. Players have said he looks pretty good. And crucially, the Celtics have started to allow some video to get out there of him doing some work, which you generally don't see if the team doesn't feel pretty good about the guy getting back on the floor.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So he should be back and good to go. June 6th, finals are going to kick off. So that's just a few days away. All right, let's jump over here. We've got a lot of offseason stuff going on. And I guess let's go. This is what's fascinating me the most. Troy Weaver is out in Detroit. And we talked about that. I believe we talked about that a little bit last week. At this point, it all blurs together at this point of the year. But Troy Weaver's out with the Detroit Pistons. But now Monty Williams' status is up in the air. And Keith, I would be still shocked if the Pistons were willing to eat that much money. Like, if you fire a coach, you still have to pay them out on their contract. Now, maybe are there is there some non-guaranteed portion of this money at the end of the contract or something like that? Because the way I've been looking at this is they're going to have to pay out like 5 years of salary or something to Monty Williams if they decide to move on. And things didn't go swimmingly between the Pistons and Monty Williams this past season. But is it really to the point where you're going to eat that much salary? It should be almost $70 million or something they would have to pay him, unless, again, am I missing that there was some non-guaranteed money or something, or what's the situation here?
Yeah, coach stuff is very hard to track down, notoriously hard. Generally, how coach contracts work is the final year. So if you hear it's a 5-year deal, or in the case of Williams, 6-7-year deal, whatever that one ultimately ended up being, that last year is usually a team option. So you can kind of cut that year off and then move forward with whatever is left. So I think that's the situation. But you're right, it's several years at like $10 million or so a year that Monty Williams would be owed. I think even slightly a little bit more than that. I think it might have been closer to like 12. So I'm with you. Now, I'm sure there's the standard language of if he takes another NBA head coaching job, then that cancels out any money he's owed from the Pistons. But there's no guarantee, one, that another team would hire him, or two, that he even wants to do it. He didn't even really want to take this job in the first place. He was very reluctant until they came back to him and just kept saying, all right, dude, how much do we need to keep putting on the table here in terms of years and dollars before you can't say no? And then they finally hit that number. So I bet he's back. And I bet it is, if we hit first of the year trade deadline time and they haven't shown at least semi progress, he'll be gone. And then they'll make the change then, and they'll say, all right, we're going to really start over. But if they can start to make a little bit of progress, they'll move forward with that, because I'm with you. I find it hard to believe they're just going to say, all right, we'll eat a minimum of 50 plus million and call it good. So thanks. Like, I don't think that's going to be how it goes.
Keith, if that's the case, if I'm Monty Williams, because let's face it, look, over 5 years, if we're talking 50 million over 5 years, like, that's easily, people can mess it up. There's no question, but that's easily never have to work again in your life. Money,
yeah.
Right. So, and look, the history is littered with people who have gotten that kind of money and blown it and gone through it all. And you look at the history of lottery winners and things like that. But if I'm Monty Williams, I'm at the very least, if I know I could do nothing, and for 5 years I'm going to get paid $10 million a year, I'm going to at least spend a year on the beach, especially after spending a year in Detroit weather. Get me to the Caribbean, get me to Tahiti, get me to wherever, and I'm going to spend a year relaxing. That's what I'm doing at the very least if I'm Monty Williams. And reality is, he could, and this is his passion, this is his love. It wouldn't shock me if he came back to coaching, but he could very well just say, you know what? I'm going to retire and live the good life from here on out, because he certainly could do that. That's the situation that he's in right now. If the Pistons say, hey, we're done, we're just going to pay you out on this contract and see you later, we're going to go hire somebody else. If I'm Monty Williams, I'm going, all right, cool. Give me some board shorts. I'm hitting the beach.
It's funny you named off all these places where you could go to the beach, and I'm like, why not all of them? Spend a month at each and just
hop around.
Hop around the world and see different places. I think there's a couple things too, right? You could do, if you really miss basketball, do some TV. Do some consulting work where you kind of pop around and do work that way without being a formal coach somewhere as a head coach. I do think for some of these guys, it's like Doc Rivers, where we all went to. He's doing TV. He's around the game. Doc's actually pretty good on TV too. And it's like, why would you want to go back to coaching? But it's just what they do, right? It's in their blood. That's what they do. I'm a coach. That's what I want to do. But yeah, my guess is Monty Williams will probably say, all right, this time around, I am going to take a year off. I'm going to go away for a little while. I'm going to go relax. And then if somebody wants to get in, it's got to be the exact right job where I feel like it's the right fit. I'm not going to make it about they just kept throwing money at me and we go. But I believe he'll start the year as the Pistons head coach, and then we'll go forward from there. If for no other reason, I don't know who else is kind of out there that the Pistons would be like, we got to go get Coach X. Right now we have to get that guy. And that's both ways. What coach is available that's like, I desperately want to be the Pistons head coach right now, because it's hard to be a coach at the start of, let's call it what it is, the start of another rebuild, right? Even though the other, it's like they bought a house that was in the middle of being flipped, and they're like, I don't like the design choices, get rid of all of it, and we're just going to start all over. That's kind of where Trajan Langdon's at right now.
Yeah. Yep. Tough spot to be in with the Pistons. But man, I'll tell you what, if I was, and this is good to be able to say, if I won the lottery tomorrow, there would be signs, right? My shows would start coming from exotic locations. That's what would happen. But I'd still be doing these shows. So I get it, right? Like Monty Williams, if he was at some point, these guys, they want to coach because that's what he is. He's a coach. So maybe he wouldn't just spend the next 5 years on a beach or whatever and retire. But I think he wanted to take a year off last year. And I think that's what would happen. That's what would ultimately he would take that year off.
Yeah, I'm with you. Right, somebody asked me, what I might have told this already. Like, do you what's your retirement plan? And it was more of a just behind the scenes here. Like we don't work traditional jobs. Like we're not with an ESPN or the Athletic or anything where it's like traditional type structures like that. And I said to somebody, I'm like, honestly, why would I ever retire from doing this? I get to do my favorite hobby in the world as my job. Like, I don't know, maybe when I'm 60, I'll feel really different. And I'll be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't imagine.
I'm tired of Trevor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Trevor's making me do the show again. And he's on the beach because he won the lottery. And I'm sitting here in this stupid room with my recliner behind me. like here, I got to do this again. But no, I don't know. I can't envision a point where I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I love it. Like this is the best, man. We have a pretty good thing going here. So
for sure. I can't complain. All right. So Mike Brown, also someone who can't complain, got his extension done despite the back and forth about the two sides are far apart and all. It seems like Mike Budenholzer, his contract with the Suns kind of, I don't know if I want to say reset, but it set the coaching market as coaches are now getting around 10 million. And so now you're seeing these guys that are wanting that, whether it's Jason Kidd, Ty Lue, who I think got a little bit more than that, but that's around what they're wanting. Whereas you go back a few years ago, it was more like 5-ish million, 6, 7, something like that. Well, now it's been bumped up to 10. And Mike Brown obviously was wanting that. The Kings were trying to figure that out. And ultimately they got the deal done, which is great because the Kings have been largely successful, more successful than they've been in past seasons. Certainly they had that long drought in the playoffs. And I do think they're one of the teams that we're going to be keeping an eye on the trade market this summer. I think they're one of the teams that could very well make a big move. We already heard a rumor over the weekend that they're going to be looking at potentially moving their pick, which I believe off the top of my head is sitting at 13. But if the Kings do wind up making a move, I think they're a team that could easily make a leap. They're one of a number of teams that could make a leap up in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and for them, before I get into the Mike Brown part, they've got some tradable salary in like Harrison Barnes and Kevin Herter, where if you are a team that's trading away a pretty good player, you get those guys back. And because one of the rumors that's out there is like, could they be one of these? We talked, there's two mystery teams that could be interested in Jimmy Butler. Could the Kings be one of them? Well, if you're the Heat, you can pitch that as, hey, we moved Jimmy Butler, but we got back two guys who can really play in the form of Barnes and Herter. So we're feeling pretty good about that situation. So that could be something you could see be workable, right? Those guys aren't completely like, well, you got to take on some dead salary for us to get this guy. You're getting guys who can play. As for Mike Brown, I think I said it on Friday or Thursday, like you said, it all runs together at this time of year. But it was the idea of, well, we're at like 25 or 27 million and he wants 30. It's like, what are you doing? Like, just get there, like get it done. And somebody obviously came to their senses and like, all right, we're not doing a 5 or 6 year deal, but we'll do 3. That keeps you in the fold. That protects us a little longer term just in case. And you still get your 10 million and we keep a good thing rolling here, that's how it should be done.
Speaking of the coaching search, my Lakers are making a strong attempt, according to Brian Windhorst on the Hoop Collective podcast, to suggest that the decision hasn't been made yet on their next head coach. This was all of this came on the heels of several reports basically saying it's JJ Redick. Like they're probably waiting till the finals are over, but it's going to be JJ Redick. And Windhorst did say that he's hearing that too. I listened to that episode this morning. He said that he's also hearing from people that are convinced it's going to be JJ Redick, but he's also hearing from others saying like, well, no, it's not done yet. They're still interviewing people. They're still interviewing James Borrego and things like that. Essentially, it sounds like it's come down to James Borrego and JJ Redick. But Keith, do you buy that the decision really isn't made, or do you think all the smoke pointing in JJ Redick's direction is where the truth ultimately lies?
I do tend to be a little bit more there where I do think it's JJ Redick. The one thing that gives me pause, and I think Brian Windhorst said this, is they did bring James Borrego back for a second interview. That seems, if you're really locked in on Redick, but maybe they made the decision after doing second interviews with guys, that could be too. But that would seem to be like, why are we wasting his time and yours doing that if that's where it's at? So that part, maybe they aren't done. Here's how I see this playing out. You ready?
Yeah.
Celtics win the title. They're doing the trophy presentation. Joe Mazzulla's up there talking to Mike Breen. JJ Redick hits him with the steel chair, and JJ Redick rips his suit open with a Lakers jersey on, and he's like, "It's on next year, baby. Let's go." And that's how it plays out as ABC fades away for the night.
He spray paints LAL on their back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right across the leprechaun. Then he walks out.
Oh no!
Now,
Keith, he would not survive. Like the crowd would storm the court at that point.
Oh my God, he wouldn't make it out of there alive. Yeah, he'd need the NWO there to back him up to get him out of there alive. Yeah. But could you imagine if that's how it played out? That'd be amazing. Like you get a whole new viewers and everything. People would be in there. But
the drama, the ratings would be through the roof.
Yeah, and then that would start a whole new. Okay, yeah, sure, this isn't fixed. Okay, but yeah, realistically, I do think there's a world where ESPN is, let's just say, asking the Lakers, can you work with us a little here so we're not having to replace one of our lead analysts in game, like on the broadcast week before the finals or whatever, like hang tight. And we've talked about it before. The Lakers don't really lose anything because even if let's say it goes 7 and it's the 23rd and they then announce, like, let's say they finish the final broadcast and that night Woj tweets it out and the Lakers are, JJ Redick's our new head coach. You're not really losing all that much because he's not going to be super involved in the decisions on the draft and free agency. And let's all be grown-ups and be realistic. If he's being hired, guaranteed he's already given his input on where things stand with that anyway. Like that's just just where it goes. Like that was honestly probably part of the interview process was, hey, go this way. Well, what do you envision here? So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a chance that will be how this plays out. And if it is, I have no issue with that. That's fine. I don't know. I'm sure for Lakers fans, how do you feel about it? Would you rather can you just, if he's going to be the coach, announce it today and move on, or like where
Yeah,
are you at?
I'd rather they just announce. And part of that is I'm the one hearing from people all the time, like, when are they going to announce the coach?
Sure.
I'd rather they
Yeah.
just announce it, and let's
Yeah.
let's move on here. But I'm envisioning kind of like the interview 2-part episode of The Office when I think it was Will Arnett, I want to say, his character comes in and he says, I've got a plan to whatever, I forget the percentage, to
Yes.
improve your profits by X percent or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, let's hear it. I'm not just going to give you the plan. No. You gotta give me the job first. Come on, nice try.
Right?
That's how I predict that this is going. They're sitting there talking to JJ Redick. Okay, so what do you want to do with the roster? Oh, no. I'm not just telling you guys what to do with the roster. You got to give me the job first, and then you get my plan. And then it's this back and forth. That would be epic. That's where I really hope there's some type of documentary crew on hand, a fly on the wall to record this, because that would be an epic interview.
Do you think Sam Cassell fell out because he was like, I have a vacation plan to the Finger Lakes? I can't miss it.
My family's probably getting worried. People go missing in the Finger Lakes.
That's a good. That is the last good sequence, because then the show goes off the rails for a little bit after that, and then that last handful of episodes of the final season, they found their footing again and then got the magic back. But I don't enjoy that stretch.
The epic line that Andy has that is just, I mean, in the final episode, I wish you knew we were in the good old days before you actually left them, or something to that effect.
Yep.
That was, I mean, just phenomenal writing. When you go back though, like they get into the whole like Jim Pam aren't getting along thing, and people got really upset about that, and I hated that storyline.
Each other stuff. Yeah, that was
right. And they're like, well, it's like real life and stuff. Yeah, but people aren't watching the show necessarily to watch real life. They're watching an exaggerated version of real life. It's to the point where I don't know if you've seen it, but the actor who played the boom mic guy, that was like they kind of threatened that he might come between them or something at one point. He's doing a commercial now. It's the same actor, and he's doing a commercial. Yeah. Whenever the commercial comes on, I'm like, oh, I hate that guy. And this is like over a decade later, and I'm like, he tried to mess up Jim and Pam.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's true. See, this is why we're not going to let some pettiness come between the show. Where else are you going to get an Office 5-minute breakdown of a show that's been off the air for a decade? Like, come on, now. Right. This is the magic of front office show. Let's go.
Nobody goes off the rails the way that we can. That's for sure. All right, let's go here. The Pelicans. I thought this was kind of a duh. Like, is there any team right now saying, hey, we're not going to add talent this summer? Probably, at least not publicly saying it. So, but the Pelicans are going to be aggressive adding talent. And I still think when I'm sure it's the same with you, Keith. I get faux trades sent to me all the time. And I'll tell you what, the last few days, it's been a ton of spot track trades. I've been getting a bunch of screenshots of spot track trades of people showing me the breakdowns of the trades, which is great because that actually has all the new rules in it and all that stuff. But I've been getting a lot of those. But there's a lot of people saying, oh, the Pelicans, they're going to trade Brandon Ingram for like these 3 spare parts or whatever. No, I think they're going to be aggressive. They're going to use Brandon Ingram. They're going to use the 2025 Lakers pick, and they're going to go try to get an upgrade. That's what they're going to do with Brandon Ingram. They're not going to go trade him to somebody for like 3 guys or something like that. They're going to try to upgrade a specific position and land the guy that they want next to Zion Williamson going into the future. I think that's what happens with Brandon Ingram. And that's where, them being aggressive, adding talent, they're going to do it on the trade market.
Yeah, the only way there becomes like a giveaway Brandon Ingram trade is if this carries into the season and they're at like the trade deadline and they're just not good. Then I could see it being like, hey, just get rid of them for draft picks, young player, whatever. We got to move. In the summertime, no. I'm down on Brandon Ingram too, but I'm not down on Brandon Ingram to the point where I'm like, just going to dump him for spare parts, as you put it. Like, I'm not there at all with Brandon Ingram. So I think the Pelicans, between the Lakers pick. They still have 2 Bucks picks. One of them is top 4 protected, but the other one's unprotected. They still have a swap with the Bucks that they could trade, and they have all of their own picks. That's a pretty good stash of stuff to be working from, just to say, hey, let's start putting this in there, because you can see teams betting on, all right, Lakers are a little older, maybe they will take a step back next year. The Bucks, like that feels like a house of cards to some extent. Maybe that all crumbles down, and now we have that. Or the Pelicans may say, hey, we won't give you those picks, but we'll give you 2 of our own picks or whatever. Or and then you're starting with, if Ingram is the most likely trade candidate, you're starting with a pretty good player anyway. So you're not, it's not like you're supplementing, like, hey, we'll give you the Lakers pick too, just because we got to get off this salary. You're in a pretty good spot where it is, hey, let's go. So yeah, I'm really excited for their offseason, because there is a number of directions they can go. And I do think we're going to see that team look pretty different going into next year. Just from, I like, Zion will be there, Murphy will be there, Herb Jones will be there. You can kind of convince me almost anybody else gets traded off that team, and I'm not going to argue with you very much. I think those 3 guys are, not that they're all like untouchable or anything, but they don't make sense to really move. But anybody else, sure, I could see it happening.
I think one of the challenges is, the more and more I look at or project what this market is going to look like coming up this summer, it's that there's a lot of teams that are in, maybe not a Pelican spot where they've got a Brandon Ingram they're potentially moving, but in a situation where they're saying, hey, we want to be buyers. We want to go get some players. We want to go add somebody. Particularly, we've heard rumors that like almost every team in the first round is shopping their pick. Not literally, but a lot of teams are, you see these takes about them shopping their pick. So the market is going to be really interesting this year. I think it's going to be a seller's market, and that's going to make things tough on some of these teams that are looking to add talent and buy. Now, the Pelicans may be an interesting spot, because a team that's in a buyer's mode could say, hey, we're going to buy on Brandon Ingram and we're going to give up something to get him. But I just think it's, again, you go back to the play-in tournament and the effects of that, more teams feeling like they're in. It seems like since that point, we've consistently seen more and more buyers on the market. And I think that's going to continue this summer. And that can complicate things in terms of not just some teams aren't going to be able to get done what they want to get done, but also the price to do business is going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch, because when you got this many buyers, that demand is that high, and maybe the supply is low, we know what happens. Economics says price goes up. So I'll be curious to see how that all plays out.
Sometimes too, we get the really fascinating trades where it is 2 teams that are both going for it, and it's like a rebalancing kind of trade. Like I've said, just to stay with the Pelicans, like an Ingram for Garland structured trade makes a lot of sense for both teams, where you could see something like that. And it's like, okay, I see how we're there. And that those are almost in some ways a lot more fun, because then you're really, instead of the traditional good player on a bad team gets traded to a good team for draft picks and young players and salary relief, it sometimes when it's 2 good teams, it's like, all right, what do they both see here? Where are they trying to get to? What are their end goals? And you can really get into it a lot deeper and have a lot of fun with it. So I do think we're going to get some of those this summer, where a lot of summers we even if we get trade heavy, it's more like you said, it's sellers are moving guys and buyers are sweeping in. I think the other thing that's going to motivate teams, don't get me wrong, I think Celtics have had a wonderful season, but in no means do I think teams are like, well, punt the rest of the half decade because it doesn't matter. Like, we can't beat them. They're not there. If they destroy the Mavs in the finals and they come out like gangbusters next year, you might have some teams start being like, all right, weaker conference, they're really good. It's going to be really hard to get to beat them, but they don't have that air of invincibility like the Warriors did for those 5 years, where it was like, I mean, if we were doing the front office show, we would have been like, in July, we would have been like, all right, so Warriors Cavs in the finals. And then we would have done it in October, Warriors Cavs still, trade deadline, Warriors Cavs. And hey, guess what? It was Warriors Cavs, because we all kind of knew it. In a lot of ways, those seasons sucked. Like, just because it was like, what are we doing? Like,
you
what
knew what was going to happen.
Like, yeah, we all knew what we were working to in the end. And I think right now, I bet even today, I bet you could ask 7 or 8 teams And they'd be like, yeah, if we had player X healthy, if we had this matchup, if we had
Mhm.
just one shot go different for us, we would have been there instead. And I think that's great for the league, because that means we've got a bunch of teams going for it, loaded up and ready to go, instead of everybody just kind of saying, nah, we're going to try, but we're not going all in because we know we can't beat Team X anyway. That team doesn't exist right now.
6 different champions in the last 6 years. That's
Yep.
that'll create that environment where a lot of teams feel like, hey, why not us? This
Yep.
year could be our year. All right, let's go here. We've got the Pacers are expected to extend Andrew Nemhard, which not a surprise. He I thought he was very, very good for that. Maybe he opened some eyes, I think, during the postseason. The question is, what is his value? What does he wind up getting on the market from the Pacers? That's what I'm having trouble landing on a number of where he could actually get to.
Yeah, so what they can do with him is I call it the Dinwiddie extension, which is the
Mm-hmm.
guy he makes below the average salary. So what you do is you take the average salary, you bump it by 140% because that's the new veteran amount. Used to be 120, it's 140 now. You bump it by that amount, and then 8% raises. So for him, and I'm doing this assuming they would decline his team option for for his 4th year, to then
Yeah.
be able to give him 4 full years on the extension. It's about 4 years, 77 million. So just for the sake of rounding, call it 20 million a year. That honestly doesn't feel that bad to me, if you believe he can be some version of what he was in this playoff run, especially in the East Finals, where, hey, we think he could kind of be our guy who can start. And then if for some reason Halliburton's out, move into the primary on-ball role and go. And as you've pulled up the multi-year cap sheet view from Spot Track for the Pacers, they can also afford that very easily, even if
Mm-hmm.
you're factoring in Siakam back on a max deal too. So that I think it'll probably end up pretty close to that. Maybe a touch under that, but probably pretty close.
And if you're Nemhard and you're making $2 million and you hear you're going to get bumped up to 20, you're saying,
Yep.
let's go. Let's get
Yep.
this thing done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Life-changing kind of money right there for sure.
Yep.
Speaking of contracts, Isaiah Hartenstein, one of the more attractive bigs out there on the market. I don't know ultimately where he's going to wind up, but I know he's going to be well above mid-level exception money. The way he filled in for Mitchell Robinson when he got injured was massive. I think the Thunder are a team that should be interested in Hartenstein as among several teams. The Knicks, of course, would like to keep him, but he's probably another guy that's going to wind up somewhere around, what do you think, that $20 million range?
Yeah, possibly. Now, I think there's a world. So the Knicks only have early bird rights on him. So we've talked about this mostly in the context of Malik Monk this year, because they're coming off similar type situations. Actually, surprisingly similar kind of money for both guys. But again, early bird rights works off of the average salary, and then you get a bump over that average salary. So in Hardenstein's case, first year salary can be about $17 million. So I think what we're kind of looking at for a guy like him is, could he say, you know what, I don't need the extra 3 million from the another team. I'm good to take 17 million from the Knicks. And I found a home here. I have a role here. I'm either going to start or I'm going to play 24, 25 minutes a night anyway with Mitchell Robinson. I'm good. Let's just stick around here, lock it in long term. That could be where we see this go for him with the Knicks. So I'm not going to rule that out, but I'm with you. You could see one of the cap space teams come in. Orlando's actually been kind of bandied about if they were to move on from Wendell Carter Jr. in a trade. Could they throw a bunch of money at Hartenstein and say, hey, come on in here, man, be our starting 5, and we'll move forward. He's a really, really good player.
Yeah, he's been excellent, and we'll see if the Knicks can hang on to him. I think they've got something in New York. I think injuries kind of did them in this year, but they've got something building there. If I'm the Knicks, I'm doing everything I can to play up that, hey, you've got a home here. You fit exactly what we're trying to do. And let's keep this thing rolling. Don't let $3 million put you into maybe a situation that's not as good as it is here.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes money doesn't fix everything. If you can hang on this view just for another second, because this will be good chance to answer a question I get regularly from people, which I assume some watch or listen to the show under the cap hold section. And this has come up specifically with the Knicks. People have said, why is OG Anunoby not there? And one of the things that I have to remind people is he still has a pending option. When a decision has been made on his option to opt out, we all know that's coming, but we don't update these until that's official. When that has happened, then he'll move off the above section, and you'll find he's a little closer to the top because there he is, about 19.9 million. So when he declines that, he flips to a cap hold to a free agent. He'll drop in under the cap hold section. So I get that question a lot of like, why is he not down there? But that's why, because we don't want to show him in two places because technically right now still with the Knicks. So
yeah, so he's still there, and obviously he's I like this too. Okay, this is something that I actually go looking for. Now, I didn't know this about OG Anunoby. Usually I go and I look, and typically the date I see here is June 29th. That's pretty standard for the option. OG Anunoby has a different one. Now, the team and the play, they could move that if they want.
Sure.
But it's interesting that it's June 24th is the deadline for that. Do you have a rationale behind why that may be?
I don't remember. This was signed with Toronto, so I'm not sure, but that was probably my guess is sometimes the teams would prefer the earlier date possible. And I wonder if it was hey, we're going to give you the contract, so can you give us a little bit of a break here and do it a little earlier? And I think we kind of all knew unless things really went wrong and he got hurt or really, just became an awful player, he was always opting out of that anyway. So I'm sure it's one of those ones where the Raptors at the time were like, yeah, we want an earlier date. In the Anunoby, I believe he's still with Clutch Sports when they signed him, and they were probably like, yeah, sure, fine, an earlier date. We're opting out of it anyway. It doesn't matter to us. So, yeah,
it gives you a week too.
What's that?
It gives you a week before free agent, as opposed to the day before free agency begins. It gives you roughly a week to kind of figure things out if you're the team.
Yeah, we've got a couple earlier ones. Gary Payton, the second, actually is the earliest option deadline, which is the 19th of June. So that's still we'll be in the middle of the finals. Mostly, well, we'll see how long the finals goes, but that's right before game 6 of the finals. So he's got the earlier one, and then we've got a handful of other earlier ones. But you're right, the 29th is the last day. That's the last day we can have any options, team options, player options. That's the day all qualifying offers, which is what has to happen to make a guy a restricted free agent. All that stuff needs to be done on the 29th. That's a extremely busy day for me because I'm following through and watching all that stuff all the way into the late hours of the night, and then getting everything set for the next day, because the next day at 6 p.m. Eastern, that's when everything opens up for free agent negotiations.
And then things go crazy. That's the way it goes.
Or we hope, at least.
We hope. All right. We've got a couple things left. We've got the Wolves willing to pay to keep their team together. I've seen people say, oh, they need to move Towns or whatever because Towns wasn't good in the conference finals or something. No, I think the name of the game for the Wolves is consistency, keep this team together, and they are going to have to pay. And that's the way that it's, that this is set up. If you're successful as a team, you're going to have to pay to keep those guys on board. But I think that this team is very, very good. They're very talented. Anthony Edwards is a rising star in this league. And if anything, if I'm the Wolves, I'm just looking to add, but maybe just some pieces along the margins. I'm not looking to do anything drastic if I'm Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be pieces along the margins because they're blown way past the second apron, assuming no other trades. So it will be fairly minor moves. But in all honesty, let's assume they re-sign Kyle Anderson. He's kind of their only real key free agent. You bring him back, you don't really need all that much. You'll need a backup point guard because I'm not sure what's going to happen with Monty Morris. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Jordan McLaughlin. Either one of those guys or both of them could move on. So you will need one more guard to just have in the guard mix behind Conley and Edwards, along with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Even if it's somebody who's just a regular season guy, we just need him there because Conley, what do we think? 60 games-ish, probably a year now moving forward. They're going to aggressively rest him to have him ready for the playoffs. So, yeah, I minor moves around the edges, and that's where they'll go. And I think the good thing was this came out of a story by John Krasinski and Shams Charania, where one of the things that was also said in that piece was that the Wolves are, I forget exactly how it was phrased, but it's like this is both sides of that ownership fight. Both Glenn Taylor and the Mark Laurie, Alex Rodriguez side are both basically saying, hey, we're not breaking the team up, which is good. Because if you had
regardless of
one
who
side,
wins.
then that would really pit the people on one side or the other of like, if you had the Laurie Rodriguez side say, yeah, we gotta shed some payroll. Well, people are gonna no, don't break our team up, which that's you shouldn't. Now,
No,
they've got about a year. If next year doesn't go as good or better, they're going to start breaking the team up. You can't be that expensive and just kind of sitting there. So they're going to have to do something. But one more year keeping them together, that's the right move.
All right, last thing we've got for today, a little bit of draft news. DaRon Holmes canceling workouts. Usually that's a sign that the players received a promise somewhere in the draft. This is the first, right? And sometimes we get rumors of a promise and that wasn't really there or whatever. And of course, it's hard to verify that the player was promised anything, at least until after the draft. And even then, sometimes it can be a bit murky. But usually when you see a guy start canceling workouts, particularly when it's not like the top pick or something like that, you know, they got pretty strong word from someplace that, hey, you will not fall past us. And so then they say, okay, let's shut it down and fast forward to draft night.
Yeah, DaRon Holmes is a player I really like. I get to see him play at the high school level because he went to Montverde Academy, which I've mentioned before. That's very close to where I live in Florida. It's only a short drive away, so I tend to go over there quite a bit to see some of these guys when they're on the prep level. That's just, if people want to know, that's like where Cooper Flagg went to school. It's the premier high school program in the country.
Yep.
So I get to see him play over there, and I was kind of like, I like this kid because he plays really hard. He's pretty athletic for a big. He's like 6'10", legit power forward center size. ESPN in their latest mock has Denver taking him. Now, they did not suggest that Denver was the team who promised him. It was a combo of, seems like he's got a first round promise, and the Nuggets would make sense because they could use a 4 or 5 behind Gordon and Jokic. I think it would make a ton of sense there. But if people aren't real familiar with him, because I get it, he played at Dayton. They're not one of the blue blood schools. But last year, averaged 20.4 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, about 2.1 blocks. Everything's consistent in his profile. The one thing he did more last year, took 2.5 3-pointers per game and hit him at about 38%. So that's encouraging. I don't know how real the jump shot is. We'll see that. We'll find out. But the rebounding is consistent. The shot blocking is consistent. And the scoring and finishing around the basket are all real things. So this kid can really play. He should be a first-round pick. That's my belief. I believe that for a while. Bryce Simon has the same opinion. Bryce is increasingly becoming our go-to draft guy. Now it seems like a lot of others are coming around to that same thing. So good player. Well, my guess is we'll get one or two more of these. Generally, we kind of hear about another guy. It's a little early in the process, quite frankly. It's usually another week or two when we're about 2 weeks out from the draft that we start hearing about workout cancellations. But if you feel locked in, now go work with your trainer and get ready. If you really feel like that team's going to be there for me, go get ready. Or it could also be, we feel confident we're going to be a first round and we don't need to go see another 7-8 teams or whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. But definitely a first round talent should be a first round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And always something that raises eyebrows when a player starts canceling workouts. So it's something worth keeping an eye on, and we'll see where ultimately he goes. And if it winds up being the team that did indeed promise him, sometimes guys get picked before then. But sounds like he feels pretty good that he is a first round pick.
I was wondering what happens then. Does a team get like very like, oh man, like that was our dude. Like or is it like we promised him? Yeah, so did we, and we have 3 picks ahead of you. So who cares? Like move on. Like it's not that teams don't have the next guy available, because it's this more often comes off. We've heard this in the NFL draft sometimes, where it's like they took my player and we didn't know who we were going to pick. It's like, what are you doing? Like if it was in the 7th round, okay, maybe, but like in the first round, you got to have like, if you're the 5th pick, you could have 10 guys on your board, and just in case, what if 4 of them retire before being drafted? Like you got to be ready to go. Like it's just weird to me when teams suggest that.
That's how the plot of draft day plays out. That's how suddenly Bo Callahan is available, and you didn't think he was going to be, and your whole draft board is messed up, and you panic.
That's it. They both went with their original picks.
Yep.
Now everybody's
And Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock, and they don't know what to do.
Yep, that infant Jeff Carlson, man. You got to watch out for him. He's sneaky. We'll get all your second-round picks.
I need to rewatch that movie before we actually get to NBA draft night. We need an NBA.
I tend to throw it on draft. It's so weird because there isn't a basketball draft night movie.
No.
So I'll throw draft night on during the morning when I'm kind of doing my last minute draft prep and
eating your pancakes.
So yeah, that's it. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll have pancakes on first round draft night. Second night, we'll see how that figures out. I can't wait to see how that impacts things. I know that's a whole other topic. We can spend time on it later because we're wrapping up. But that 2-night draft is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I wonder if it'll change how teams behave on draft night. But that's something that'll be some of the intrigue of the night is watching how all that plays out. All right, everybody. I think that does it for today. Appreciate all of you for joining the show. Again, make sure you do subscribe over on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're going to keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of the NBA. Check out the Basketball Bulletin. I'll put the links in the description down below. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.